Our Secret Service is launching an initiative to help us identify people who may have been radicalised.
Know the Signs details dozens of indicators that a friend or family member could be planning a terror attack. As Adam Hollingworth reports, the move comes as our spy chiefs identify a new and worrying type of terrorism.
Time was when the intelligence services were never seen, never heard. But now they're loudly proclaiming your country needs you to keep an eye on those you know and, if necessary, dob them in.
Recognising a potential warning sign and then alerting NZSIS or police could be the vital piece in the puzzle that ultimately saves lives.
To that end, they're publishing a guide called Know the Signs to help us all identify potential terrorists in our midst.
To pay attention if they are, and to be alert so that if they see or hear about something that seems off, that worries them and concerns them.
Like that little squiggly hair piece, because that would, if I saw that, I'm calling someone on that, by the way.
That does seem off. Also, I had a hard time with the accent.
Kryptonian.
Yeah.
She might be Kryptonian. Now, come on.
Okay, but I mean, she thinks that looks good, so let her be. We don't make fun of people based on their
there we go.
Appearances. But I lost my train of thought.
Don't.
I don't think we should do that.
Don't. Anyway, go ahead. Derail.
I couldn't understand the anchor's accent.
What's that?
Whatever the news anchors, when they tossed to this piece, their accent was so thick I needed subtitles. I didn't understand it. I apologize if anybody feels like that about my accent, but I needed to hear that again. We don't need to replay it. Go ahead.
No, I want to get to the good part here.
The person is on the road to actually committing an attack.
The SIS has listed around 50 signs, from obvious ones, like writing on a weapon, as happened in Christchurch, to
a person who is really developing an us versus them worldview.
Authorities say they're usually closely monitoring 40 to 50 potential terrorists. These people used to be motivated by their white identity or by their faith. But in the past 6 months, a third group has emerged, those motivated by politics.
And so it could be the COVID measures that the government took, or it could be other policies that are interpreted as infringing on rights, and it's what I sometimes describe as a kind of hot mess of ideologies and beliefs, fueled by conspiracy theories.
The launch of the initiative Know the Signs is an indicator that the security services know that they can't do it alone. They need the help of the public.
Yeah, so thank you.
I mean, what they're saying here, and I read the draft of this a couple of weeks ago, is that someone who maybe was a radicalized, religious extremist, or who used to be motivated by their whiteness, they say.
Right, their white identity.
Is now the same as someone who questions COVID government decisions.
Know the Signs, a guide for identifying signs of violent extremism. Now more than ever we need to work together to protect each other. Contents forward 4 How you can use this guide. 6 The scale of extremism. 8 Understanding the motivations behind violent extremism. 9 How we developed these indicators. 10 The indicators of violent extremism. 12 1 Mindset and ideology. 13 2 Association and relationships. 14 3 Research and planning. 15 4 Gathering knowledge, skills and resources. 16 5 Preparation. 17 6 Security awareness. 18 7 Unusual changes in behavior. 19 Who can help us? The role of our communities and how. 20 Who to contact. 22 Forward by Rebecca Kitteridge, Director General of Security. I'm pleased to publish the New Zealand Security Intelligence Services (NZSIS) first ever guide to help members of the public to identify signs of violent extremism. Now more than ever we need to work together to protect each other. One of our core missions is to detect violent extremists. That is increasingly difficult in a world where casual violent rhetoric is widespread, and serious violent extremists are very security aware. In these circumstances, information from the public can be critical to our success. Every year we are contacted by hundreds of New Zealanders who notice concerning behaviour and decide to let us know. We want to help New Zealanders feel more confident about stepping forward, by explaining the kinds of behaviours or activities that concern us the most. Knowing the signs of violent extremism, this guide draws on the expertise and experience of NZSIS intelligence professionals, who identified and compiled the most common behaviours observed during their work to counter violent extremism in Aotearoa, New Zealand. All these indicators directly relate to the New Zealand context, and will often have been seen by our partners overseas as well. What you will find in this guide are actual observable behaviours you might see in someone on a pathway towards carrying out an act of extremist violence. You will notice that the indicators in this guide are not specific to any particular extremist belief or ideology. That is deliberate. Violent extremist ideologies are constantly evolving, and violent extremists come from a wide range of backgrounds. We need your help. NZSIS cannot do this work alone. We all have a role to play in keeping each other safe. I am asking all New Zealanders to look out for concerning behaviours or activities that could be easily observed, and to report them. You may be uniquely placed to see the signs, and to help NZSIS to understand the true threat an individual poses. Trusting your instincts is important. Even the smallest piece of information can be vital to our efforts to detect and prevent terrorist attacks. In other words, if you see something, say something. How you can use this guide. This guide aims to raise awareness of indicators of violent extremism, to help people identify some of the key warning signs. Please tell us if you see or know anybody behaving in the ways described. The guide talks specifically about violent extremism rather than non-violent forms of extremism. By releasing this guide, we aim to help more people understand the threat of violent extremism and how you can report concerning behavior or activities. These indicators are a guide rather than a checklist. The indicators in this booklet are not a checklist. They cover the most concerning behaviors and activities our investigators have observed from violent extremists in New Zealand and overseas. We're asking people to report any behaviors or activities they come across that resemble any of the indicators described in this guide, or that feel concerning. Someone on the path toward violent extremism is unlikely to demonstrate concerning behavior in any particular order. They may start acting in a concerning way and then stop. They could also re-engage or disengage with violent extremist ideologies and behaviors at any time. You report, and then we assess. Once we receive a report, we'll consider it in context with other available information. Our aims are to determine if we need to investigate further and understand if there are any risks to be managed. We'll consider several factors when determining if an individual is likely to be, or become, a violent extremist. The individual behaviors and activities listed in this guide are concerning when they occur alongside other activities. These behaviors on their own may not be considered signs of violent extremism. The scale of extremism. Extremism comes in different forms. This guide describes extremist behaviors only where they become, or there is an intention that they become, violent. Non-violent forms of extremism, however objectionable, lie outside the purpose of this booklet and outside NZSIS's areas of focus. Extremism, views on the fringe. Extreme ideologies can be based on faith, social or political beliefs that exist on the fringes of society, outside the more broadly accepted views and beliefs of most people. Extremists may seek to radically change the nature of government, religion or society, or to create a community based on their ideology. Violent extremism, the belief in violence. Violent extremists take these ideologies further and justify using violence to achieve radical changes. Violent extremists often target the groups that they see as threatening their success or survival, or undermining their worldview. Terrorism refers to acting on that belief in violence. Violent extremism would only become terrorism when a terrorist act is carried out. Under New Zealand law, a terrorist act is defined as an ideologically, politically, or religiously motivated act that is intended to intimidate a population, or to coerce or force the government to do or not to do certain things. A terrorist act could include acts causing death or serious bodily injury, but isn't necessarily limited to this. Understanding the motivations behind violent extremism, we use the following framework when referring to the motivations or ideologies behind violent extremism. Politically motivated violent extremism, promoting the use of violence to achieve change or within an existing political system. Faith-motivated violent extremism, promoting the use of violence to advance one's own spiritual or religious objectives. Identity-motivated violent extremism, promoting the use of violence to advance one's own perception of identity and / or denigrate others' perceived identities. Single-issue motivated violent extremism, promoting the use of violence to achieve a desired outcome to a specific issue. How we developed these indicators. Each indicator in this resource has either been observed or discovered to have happened within New Zealand. Our NZSIS investigators reviewed New Zealand counter-terrorism investigations dating back to 2006 to identify the common behaviours and activities detected in those cases. We then grouped those indicators into 7 themes. Due to the relatively low numbers of violent extremists and terrorist acts in New Zealand, we've used events seen overseas to validate some of these indicators. We've done this to ensure we are sharing information that is analytically robust. We now use these indicators as a tool within NZSIS to help identify genuine threats as they emerge. Mindset and ideology, association and relationships, research and planning, gathering knowledge and resources, preparation, security awareness, unusual behavior change. The indicators of violent extremism. All of the following behaviors and activities have been identified in people who have either been investigated for violent extremism or have committed a terrorist act. This is not an exhaustive list. By sharing these indicators with you, we aim to raise awareness about the nature of the threats we face, and to encourage you to help to keep New Zealand safe. Mindset and ideology. These behaviors may indicate someone is developing or promoting a violent extremist ideology. Accesses violent extremist content. X consumes violent extremist videos, media, music or messaging. Identifies with a violent extremist cause. X possesses or displays imagery and symbols from known terrorist or violent extremist groups or movements. They may display this imagery online or in the real world. X becomes fixated on violent extremist ideology or views. X donates money to violent extremist figures or causes. Develops a hostile us versus them worldview. X makes dehumanizing, hostile or violent statements against individuals or groups they perceive as the enemy or the other. Supports the use of violence to further their cause. X considers violence a valid way to further their cause and advance their ideological aims. This may include justifying terrorist attacks or other acts of terrorism. X praises acts of terrorism and people responsible for violent extremist attacks. Expresses a willingness or desire to die on behalf of a violent extremist cause. X communicates a willingness to die for their violent extremist ideology. X views themselves as a defender or savior of their cause. Association and relationships, the behaviors or activities which may indicate someone is developing relationships with known terrorist groups and extremists. Such relationships have led to radicalization in some cases, and may exist in the real world or online. Seeks out or engages with violent extremist individuals or groups. X knowingly joins an established terrorist or violent extremist group where violent rhetoric is normalized or extremist propaganda is shared. X creates their own violent extremist group or seeks a following to promote their cause, or both. X attempts to contact individuals or groups known to be terrorists or violent extremists. Becomes exposed to violent extremists. X forms ties or friendships with individuals who promote a violent extremist ideology. X becomes involved in a group whose members are violent extremists or where extremist ideas are discussed. Research and planning. These behaviors or activities may indicate someone is researching or planning to engage in terrorist or violent extremist activity. Examines possible targets. X requests information about particular sites with emblematic or symbolic significance even though they have no personal connection to that place. These might be official buildings, places of worship or places where crowds gather. X collects tactical details to target individuals or places linked to their extremist ideology or grievance. Tactical details include information that helps them understand the lifestyles or routines of their targets. X tries to access critical infrastructure for no legitimate reason. Conducts reconnaissance. X carries out unusual surveillance or detailed reconnaissance of a site. X pays particular attention to security procedures. X takes unusual photos or videos of a site. Shows interest in offshore terrorist activity. X asks for advice and recommendations from extremist associates on how to travel to places where terrorist or violent extremist groups operate. X conducts research on offshore places where terrorist or violent extremist groups operate. X searches for offshore conflicts related to their ideology. Gathering knowledge, skills and resources. These behaviors or activities may indicate someone is gathering the knowledge, skills or resources to engage in terrorist or violent extremist activity. Any skills training might happen in New Zealand or offshore. Gathers detailed knowledge on using or making weapons. X accesses or possesses publications or instructional videos on making or using weapons. X gathers information describing the materials that can be used to make weapons. Acquires potential weapons or ingredients for making explosives. X suspiciously or illegally acquires chemicals or other materials associated with making explosives. X suddenly or unusually develops a stockpile of knives, firearms or explosive materials for no legitimate reason. X seeks access to knives, firearms or explosive materials for no legitimate reason. Receives or gives financial support. X receives financial support from violent extremist groups and individuals. X helps fund other violent extremist causes. Develops skills, experience or inside access. X seeks training, technical expertise or employment at sensitive sites or in specialist jobs for unexplained reasons. X trains to use knives, firearms or explosive materials in a way that seems unusual or concerning. X conducts training in military or paramilitary style survivalist tactics for no legitimate reason. Preparation. These behaviors or activities may indicate someone is in the final stages of preparing to conduct a terrorist or violent extremist act. Prepares weapons. X suspiciously builds or tests weaponry or improvised explosives. X inscribes weapons with ideological symbols, text, or both. justifies reasons for an attack. X seeks justification to carry out an act of violent extremism from perceived like-minded individuals or extremist leaders. Declares intent to conduct a terrorist or violent extremist act. X communicates to associates their intention or plans to conduct a violent act to support their extremist cause. X prepares or disseminates a manifesto, social media post or video statement explaining their intention to conduct a violent act to support their cause. Security awareness. These behaviors or activities may indicate someone is attempting to conceal their violent extremist activities. Displays a security awareness or concern. X uses fake names, aliases or pseudonyms when online or within specific communities. X creates exclusive groups on secure forums or messaging apps. X becomes secretive about their activities with associates. Develops a cover story to hide their intentions. X creates a story to try to explain unusual or suspicious behavior or activities. X provides limited or false information when questioned about future plans. Uses tactics to avoid detection. X regularly switches between SIM cards or mobile phones. X starts using burner phones, which they dispose of after a short time. X conceals their online activities by using virtual private networks, VPNs, or proxy servers. Note: the behaviors and activities listed under this indicator are concerning when they occur alongside other activities listed in this guide. These behaviors on their own are not considered signs of violent extremism. Unusual changes in behavior. An individual displaying noticeable changes in their everyday behavior may indicate they plan to conduct an attack. Unexpected changes in regular behavior and appearance. X abandons employment without notice. X withdraws from or abandons close relationships. X appears withdrawn or prone to sudden outbursts. X sells or disposes of personal belongings unexpectedly, or with urgency, and shows a disregard for any future considerations. For instance, they may not seek any personal or financial gain from what they are selling. X stops participating in regular and established commitments. X has suspicious or unexplained injuries, such as burns or skin irritations. Note: the behaviors and activities listed under this indicator are concerning when they occur alongside other activities listed in this guide. These behaviors on their own are not considered signs of violent extremism. Who can help us? The role of our communities and how all New Zealanders are responsible for helping to detect and prevent terrorist attacks. We also have a role in preventing and countering violent extremism. The people closest to vulnerable individuals tend to be friends and community members. These are the people who are most likely to identify concerning behaviors. Leaders in the broader community also have a role, from civil society organizations and groups online to iwi leaders, faith communities and interfaith groups. Everyone can have a positive, constructive role in preventing violent extremism and keeping New Zealanders safe. If you see the signs in an emergency, phone 111 immediately. Also phone 111 immediately if the information is time critical, such as if an attack is likely to happen very soon. If the information is not time critical, you can report suspicious behavior in one of the following ways. Tell NZSIS. Complete an online form confidentially on our website, www.nzsis.gov.nz. Tell the police. You can either complete an online report at 105.police.gov.nz, or call their non-emergency number 105. Tell Crime Stoppers. Phone Crime Stoppers anonymously on 0800 555 111, or submit an online report at www.crimestoppers-nz.org. Know the signs 2121.
Bye.